Welcome back to Wings Etc. on Cape Girardeau for more of the Coaches Show. SEMO ESPN 1220, SEMOESPN.com, and the SEMO ESPN radio app. Cody Sandusky with you, and our next guest on the program. You can hear a little bit of an excitement, joined by, I think, the entirety of the women's gymnastic team. His first-year gymnastics head coach, Ashley Lawson, SEMO alum, former SEMO assistant, and now SEMO head coach. First of all, welcome into the Coaches Show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So hopefully the nerves are shaking off a little bit. I know we tried to give Brady some time to hopefully ease the nerves, but putting on the headset, is it a wave back? Are you feeling all right?
I'm good. I'm good.
We'll make it through. So as we said, this is your first year as the head coach of the women's gymnastics team, but you have been here before as you were a student athlete here at Southeast on the gymnastics team, and you also were here as an assistant coach for 1 year. So the third time being back in the community, being back in the area, how does it feel to be back in Southeast Missouri?
It's been wonderful. Everybody has been very welcoming. Coming back and having my entire family here. When we were here before, when I was the assistant coach, I only had one child. And we knew with my husband coaching baseball and me coaching gymnastics, it just wasn't easy for us to both be coaches and be parents.
Yeah.
So we took a break and we went back to Florida, and we had our second child, both two boys. So I'm in a house full of all boys.
Oh, boy.
But it's been a blessing. Everybody's been very welcoming coming back. And just kind of seeing some of those same boosters that were boosters when I was a student athlete, and their welcoming response has been wonderful.
Good deal. I understand the inverse of that situation. I grew up with all girls in the house. My brother's 11 years older, so by the time I was a kid, it's like, oh, it's mom and my sister. All right, I'm going to go hide in my room. I think I'll be safer in there. Is that kind of the same situation for you, the other way around, hide out as much as you can sometimes?
I wish I had hideout time. My husband is still not here,
right.
So I've been single parenting, so I definitely give a lot of credit to those single parents out there. But we have a huge tub in our master bath, and I finally have broken that in, and I got to relax just a little bit last week, and so it was definitely something that I enjoy and hope to be able to do a little more.
There you go. Take the deep breath before you dive into the season. As we look, the season starts January 4th for the women's gymnastic team. You've got a quad meet down in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. You've got against Alabama, of course, the SEC, Northern Illinois, and Temple. But before we get to that, kind of take a look. How are you feeling about the team so far? I know you've had 3 red and black inter-squad matchups, your last one going December 7th, I believe. So you've had that within the last month. How are you feeling as things gear up into the season's beginning?
We have definitely built from the beginning our first inter-squad at Halloween, and then we did a Thanksgiving inter-squad, and then we had our red and black inter-squad just a couple weeks ago. And that was the closest thing I think that we will have for an actual meet. We had well over 150 people there.
That's wonderful.
I'm pretty sure the cookies and the hot chocolate and the milk helped a little bit.
That is incentive.
But it was wonderful. The girls were able to do that. And so we've gone back this week. It's really difficult for them because they want to be home. There's nobody here at school. But we've really just been fine-tuning those landings and those dismounts and working on just the simple jump from the low bar to the high bar and doing it with clean form. And so it's really just polishing up what we have. The skills are there. And then it's going to just kind of come to a game time decision to be able to calm those nerves a little bit and be able to shine like they know that they can definitely do. And
you talk about that as being a former athlete yourself in that gymnastic setting as well as for these girls. It's, I'm sure, a bit of a difficult thing to emulate in terms of that feeling of a meet. I know there's a lot of high energy going on, and you can do that with people to a certain extent, but I know in other sports, I know people try to pipe in noise to kind of emulate that game day experience. I'm sure that's maybe a little bit difficult for gymnastics. How do you guys adjust to that, and how do you prepare for that kind of feeling for meets?
We do a lot of pressure sets in the gym, so it will be something like the entire gym stopping and watching. We've done cold sets where they have to get up and they just have to do a balance beam routine or do a bar routine without even warming up. We've done a quiet routine where we shut the music off. We turn off everything. Nobody's allowed to cheer. Nobody's allowed to do anything. And then they have to sit there and they have to really think and focus on just them. And then a fun one that everybody except for the person that's actually performing likes is we do distraction routines where there'll be girls that'll be doing a beam routine and somebody will be laying underneath the balance beam with them, or we'll be throwing foam block at them or throwing a ball over, and they have to focus and concentrate. Wow. And so that's the best way for us to be able to do it with just our small 13 girls.
And hopefully a good consolation to know that no one's going to be throwing foam blocks at you during your routine proper. That's probably a good consolation prize of, hey, this is just practice.
Absolutely.
I promise this shouldn't happen on a real day event.
Absolutely.
That sounds nerve-wracking for me, and I do this for a living, and I'm okay with without ever having to do that kind of scenario. But you talk about this team coming in, and then we have a lot of fresh blood in the program a bit. I know we have one or two upperclassmen that are really standing out for this team. But for you coming back in, after having been gone for 8 years, I know we kind of talked about it off the air, you've got kind of a new word marker, kind of a new motto for the team. How's it been instilling that? What are the key points of that coming into the 2019 season?
This year we're really focusing on the team. And that is a lot. Our hashtag we use a lot is the team. And it's a big adjustment for student athletes coming into college, going from a club sport where it was really just an individual to coming here to college where it's not about just you anymore. And so, it's hard to kind of sometimes grasp that concept and know that just because you're not necessarily in lineup on that one weekend and somebody else is in your spot, you should be their biggest cheerleader. And so that's kind of been a big adjustment. And then I'm just really obsessing over the process and the journey to get to where we want to go. The girls all sat down and they all, they had team goals that they wrote out and where they wanted to be by the end of the year. And we can't just think about those goals at the end. We've got to really take time and focus on what it takes to get there instead of just obsessing over that end goal.
Yeah.
So
I know it was a big thing. Emmett Smith always talked about the former Dallas Cowboys running back. He would write them down at the beginning of the season, kind of have them in front of him almost all the time, wherever he could internalize that. And I know for moments like this where you kind of talked about the athletes being here, not necessarily being with family, but that's hopefully a hidden blessing in terms of the opportunity to build together as a team. So I know for you all, it's been practice today, and I know I'm kind of gesturing out. They don't see it on radio, but kind of toward the crowd where we have the gymnastics team here with us. The opportunity to kind of have those meals, like situations like this, you're able to commune as a team, you're able to kind of just settle into that routine as a team and hopefully build that camaraderie that is, I'm sure, indispensable for a program like a sport in gymnastics.
Absolutely, and it's really important for the girls to get to know each other both in and out of the gym. And we did that one right in the beginning of season. We went on a team retreat. We took them away from campus. We took them away from their cell phones.
Big one.
Yes. And they had to be able to just kind of communicate with each other and get to know each other on a totally different level. And it was great to see. They all got a little vulnerable. They opened up about where they've come from. Everybody's here for the same reason, but we all come from different backgrounds and how we got here. So I think that kind of put them on a whole new level with getting to know each other. And then, we did a team Thanksgiving. We did Teamsgiving, I think is what we called it. And tonight we're having a Christmas party. And so we're just kind of, using these hard times because they're away from home still, but using them to bond here with your second family.
You talk about taking away cell phones. We talked to the women's gymnastics head coach, Ashley Lawson, here on the Southeast Coaches Show. Was there any, having to pry it away, kind of you think about that comedy film of, having to pry a kid away from the bedroom, clinging to the door. Is that someone holding onto a cell phone during that kind of moment?
Not so much. Well, actually, when we went on our team retreat, they had to. We went to a place where there was zero cell phone service.
So it didn't matter anyway.
So we didn't really have to take them away. But we do that for our team dinners and things like that. Yeah. And that's the goal. When they come in my house, they drop their phone off in a basket and they get to just communicate with each other instead of, life on Instagram or Facebook or Snapchat or something like that. And so, at the end, they can take pictures and we can do things like that. But we set up a long table and they just sit there and they communicate with each other, which is so important when you have 13 different people.
I'll say it's a nice change of pace, as I know, and closer to where we are in life, we didn't have these cell phones around all the time. So it's kind of a change of pace to have to see, this is indispensable for a lot of people. And myself guilty as much of it all, kind of having to put it face down on the table when I'm eating with my wife sometimes. It's kind of a good opportunity to tune out, turn off, and just communicate. And It's just kind of a lost art sometimes, but definitely a big deal when you have a small unit like 13, 14 people together.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's been fun. They get to actually have conversations with each other instead of sending each other pictures or, just kind of chatting via text message. They're actually verbally chatting with each other and seeing the facial expressions and just kind of getting to know each other a little bit more.
Emoji-less conversations outside of Snapchat, which I hope I'm saying that's still popular. I know I'm only 27, so I feel like I'm still maybe ahead of the curve enough to be okay with it, but I'm sure there's something else I'm missing out completely. So
I have no idea. I still struggle.
Yeah, it's safer that way, believe you me. We're talking to Ashley Lawson, the head coach of women's gymnastics here at Southeastern, the Southeast Coaches Show. We're at Wings, Etc. and Cape. Be sure to come on out. You still got time to see the show proper, or you can come on out, call in your lunch order, and pick it up on your way back out the door to work. We've got a lot of events coming up. As we said, we have a lot of meets coming up, but I know there are two big ones to take a look at, and one of them specifically being the State of Missouri meet. I know it's an exciting thing, not only because it's here in Cape Girardeau, you have Mizzou and Lindenwood coming in, which is where you were last year as an assistant coach, but it's at the Show Me Center. So a big event at a big stage, I'm sure, for the team and for you especially. It's a big feeling, I guess. Big is probably the best word I have because my vocabulary is obviously very extensive on a Monday morning, but an exciting thing to be able to say, hey, we're going to be at the largest venue in the area. Let's have a killer event. Yeah,
and that's our goal. You know, we're starting off with a big arena. We're starting off at Alabama. They usually have 12,000 roaring fans for just a gymnastics meet. So that's huge for us to start off. And then we go to Iowa, which is another big venue. And then we go to Arkansas. So we have a lot of big venues. So to be able to have one here in our hometown, the bummer about the whole thing is it falls on spring break. So our students won't necessarily be here, but this is where, our big thing is to reach out into the community. And that is another reason why we do so much volunteering, is so that everybody in the community knows who SEMO Gymnastics is. And then when we have a meet, they'll actually be like, oh, that is the gymnast that read to me at school, or that's the one that I saw giving out a code, or whatever it might be. And so we're kind of trying to implement a lot of volunteer work to be able to get SEMO Gymnastics back out there. And again, for that meet, we're actually going to have our alumni. It's going to be our alumni meet also. And so we're really pushing to get the alumni to come back and to get the alumni back involved. There's so many of them out there, and the program's been around for 40 years. And there's so many alumni that have kind of paved the way for this program. And so for us to be able to have them come back and have them see it in a big arena. And so our goal is to kind of, try and fill the stands. That's what we would love. We would love to be able to do it so that every year we could potentially get a meet in the Show Me Center, so that these girls can get that feeling in your hometown of competing in a big arena.
That's going to be, as you said, during spring break, but that is Sunday, March 10th at 1 p.m. Make sure to mark down your calendar and be ready for it, folks. It should make for a good time. A great way to come out, not only see competition against Missouri, but against a conference foe in Lindenwood. And I know for you a little bit of a connection, as we said, you were there last year. So maybe looking at the inverse of that, how has it been being in this group of these young ladies? I know it's something to kind of talk about a little bit, with it being a club-based sport. I guess it's an originality. It's not as personable sometimes. You're kind of focused on, hey, I've got someone going to beams, I've got someone going to everything going on. How has it been able to develop these relationships with these young ladies, seeing from a distance how they were last year, but being in the midst of it all this year?
It's really hard as an opposing coach, I guess. There's such a chaoticness going on in college meets that I didn't really get the time to kind of sit and watch these girls. At USAG Nationals, I saw a couple of them that actually got to rotate. I know Alana got to rotate with us. And so just kind of getting to know them and seeing how they compete. And then being able just to kind of walk in, and they knew who I was, so it made it a little easier. I've seen what they did. I've heard the backstory, and, my goal was for them to come in and know that they're here for a reason, and know that they're capable of so much more than what they probably think they are. And that was, one of our biggest goals, was trying to get them to realize that they're here for a reason. They were brought on this team for a reason, and the success can be completely endless for them if they truly believe in themselves.
Talking to Ashley Lawson, the head coach of the gymnastics program here at Southeast on the Southeast Coaches Show. Cody Sandusky filling in for Eric Shawn today. A pivot back a minute, I suppose. You talked about being a part of the community, kind of doing the servanthood mentality. I know we talked to Brady about that. That's one of the big things of the student-athlete experience, is being able to work out in the community. We made the joke about the parking meters being covered, which, as a former student with a parking ticket or two under his collar that were paid off, I promise, don't come looking for me, that's definitely a big blessing. But what's maybe one of the more fun things for you, kind of getting the team involved there? Some of the events you look forward to being engaged in the community?
We just recently did Feed My Starving Children, which was a great time, and I think the girls had a good time, and we had kind of a line going, an assembly line, and as soon as we'd pack our meals, we'd say our senior Allie Bell would go 1, 2, 3, and then we just came up with a cheer. They had a cheer, and it was SEMO, one more box, ready to go, and then they would scream it.
Nice.
And then they would come by and pick up the box, and we were trying to see how many boxes we could actually pack. And so that was something fun. And what these student athletes get to do is they're helping, but in addition, they're also team bonding.
Exactly.
And so it's not really forced down their throat. It's something that, we get to kind of do and help others as well as helping ourselves.
It naturally brings you together and actually brings out that competitive spirit. And I will say, having been involved in an event or two like that, hearing a cheer, I'm sure, is kind of motivating not only for you all, but for everyone else around. Because let's be honest, sometimes you kind of get head down and you just focus on it. But to hear that kind of scream is probably a fun thing to kind of break up that day. Absolutely.
We had a good time. There was a lot of fun songs that they were playing. So we sang, we danced, we cheered, we did whatever, and just kind of made the best of it. It was a 2.5 hour volunteer, but it seemed like it was 10 minutes. I mean, we just had a great time.
Just sprinted by. And we kind of wrap up taking a look. As we said, you were here in 2001 to 2004. You graduated from SEMO in 2005. What maybe being back in the community full-time and being back with the team full-time, what has been the biggest change from then to now, or maybe the biggest change you want to bring, and maybe same for 2010 when you were here as an assistant?
Well, first off, they're very spoiled.
Okay.
The gym that they have now is not what it was when I was a student athlete here. And so that is a huge upgrade for this program. And then just anything from the apparel that they get to the things that they have in the gym and outside of the gym, from our fueling station and things like that. We didn't have that here as a student athlete. Cape Girardeau was little, nobody knew where Cape Girardeau was. You'd have to say an hour and a half south of St. Louis,
or a couple hours north of Memphis,
right?
Yeah.
And so now it's been really neat to just kind of see Cape Girardeau come alive. It's not the little tiny town. There's, a White Castle here, and there's like actually restaurants here instead of just like a McDonald's or whatever it might be. So
I appreciate that being the selling point, by the way. As someone who was a fan of White Castle, that was something I was spoiled as a kid going to St. Louis. It was, oh, hey, we're going to White Castle, which sounds ridiculous now, but I appreciate that being the standout landmark for you.
My husband is an avid White Castle person.
Go.
I do not care for that, but
my wife would probably agree in that respect. So.
Yeah.
But that's very good to have you kind of come back in and kind of talk about it. You have your two little boys. How old are they?
I have a 10 and a 7-year-old.
10 and 7. Okay. They've adjusted pretty well to being in the school and everything back here in Cape Girardeau?
They've done extremely well. They actually have surprised me, and I say all the time, my oldest was a student of the month. He goes to Cape Middle, and so he was student of the month 2 months in a row, and my youngest was a student of the month the first month we were here, and I said that they're lying, or they have them all fooled. So I'm not sure what, but as long as they're being great in school and in the classroom, then that's wonderful for me. They do come into the gym. They have 13 babysitters, which has been really wonderful. And because my husband isn't here currently, I have a chauffeur that brings them into the gym after she picks them up from school, and they think that they're hot stuff because they walk in and all the girls say, "Hey, boys."
Nice.
So, they go back to school and say they know the gymnastics team, which is pretty cool for them. So
I'll say that is a nice calling card. Like, hey, I know those people.
Yeah.
It's, kind of makes you, straighten up a little bit, roll back your shoulders and stand up tall.
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, not quite. Maybe so. Is Ashley Lawson the head coach of the gymnastics program here at Southeast on the Southeast Coaches Show? Just one final thing before we go. I know you mentioned your goal for the team in 2019, kind of focusing in on the team. And, of course, you would always want to talk about conference championships and things like that. But what is the overarching goal for you in 2019 for this program?
It's always nice to say, I know the girls' goal is to be on podium at conference.
Certainly.
But I think more so for us internally and as a team, it's just rebuilding that culture and having them believe in themselves and having them love the sport that they spend so many hours doing. So it kind of encompasses everything. We strive to have a 3.5 GPA or higher. We want to be national academic champions. And so we put a lot of time into our schoolwork also because they are students first, athletes second.
Certainly.
And so I think it's really just buying into what we're trying to do, and really believing that they're here for a reason and that they can do great things here. And then I think the success will all just kind of fall into place.
There you go. Taking her off the hot seat, Ashley Lawson, the gymnastics coach for the first year here at Southeast Missouri State. Thank you so much for joining us on the Coaches Show.
Thank you very much.
Good luck this season. We'll hopefully catch up with you soon.
Yes, thank you very much.
Coach Ashley Lawson, head coach of the gymnastics team here at Southeast. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for the entire team coming out. A lot of support here. We'll take one final timeout, come back in a couple of moments, and we will wrap up with the Director of Athletics, Brady Barkey. It is the Southeast Missouri State Coaches Show live at Wings Etc. in Cape Girardeau on SEMO ESPN. Welcome back into the Southeast Coaches Show, live at Wings Etc. on Cape Girardeau. Cody Sandusky in for Eric Shawn. Reminder, as we wrap things up, you can come in to Wings Etc. Pick yourself up some great lunch specials starting at $6.99. I know we've got some wings available today for 69 cents, so come on in, get them spun in sauce, and be ready to go. Or call it in, come pick it up, and be ready to take it back to your workplace as we wrap up the lunch hour. Joined once again by the Director of Athletics, Brady Barkey, and thank you once again to Ashley Lawson, the head coach of the gymnastics program, for a great first interview, I'd say. She feigned nervousness, but I think she did it right for herself.
Yeah, did you notice the applause wasn't nearly as great when I came back?
You know, sometimes it's just, as the jokes went, sometimes we're not going to make a joke about lowering the bar, but I feel like, you know, the crowd response did that for us.
Hey, you know, the best thing I can do is hire good people to put around me, so
there you go.
There's a testament.
And that was actually something I was going to ask about, so we segue right in. Ashley being a former assistant coach, but not only that, a former athlete here at Southeast, being in the gymnastics program, being a well-lauded program member when it was all said and done. How is that, as a director of athletics, to be able to bring someone back into the program who's been a part of it? I know there's probably no greater point of pride for the university than to say, hey, she was here as an athlete, she's back as a coach, we're keeping continuity in the program.
Yeah, having someone who's been in the program before is important, someone who understands the culture and those types of things. But what makes her really special is the success that she also had. These gymnasts can look and they can see her name on the record boards. Right. She still holds individual records. And so, from her standpoint, not only you get credibility, but then also, they know that she understands what it's like and that she's been able to have success here and that they can too.
Yeah, not only that, but to have someone that you can point to if you're trying to aspire to break those records and say, hey, the person that has that record is right here. We can have a conversation about what it takes to break it, or maybe after we break it, maybe have a little bit of celebration about it in its own right.
Yeah, definitely.
So we wrap up, as we said, 2018. We will have a coaches show on New Year's Eve. We will not have one next week. But as we wrap up and look toward 2019, we've got a lot going on. We've got the men and women on the road down at Florida State and Memphis, and I'm sure as the director of athletics kind of helping to be on the forefront of coordinating those kind of events is always hectic. Hopefully at this point, all the hecticness is done. Everybody's where they're supposed to be, and you get the game going. But the preliminaries building up to that, how does that go, and kind of how has that been to be able to land an opportunity like going to a Florida State?
Yeah, those are games that are great experiences for our student athletes. From my standpoint, I hate it a little bit that we have to play them because those are money games.
Right.
That you're planning on a not a positive outcome on the win-loss record. But they're good experiences that you hope help prepare you for conference play, and that the student athletes have an opportunity to enjoy that experience playing in that type of an environment. But they've got good people that coordinate all that travel and figure all of that stuff out. And if it wasn't as nice outside as it is today, I'd wish that I was down in Florida or something else enjoying some of that weather. But
we've been pretty spoiled, at least for today anyway.
We lucked out today.
So you take a look at all that, as we said, we've got the men playing Florida State coming up, the women playing Memphis, although the last time the women played Memphis, it was a pretty close affair. Adriana Murphy was on that team. It was only a 2-point loss. It's something you could say, hey, you've got a chance to maybe knock them off. You saw some of that success last time. See if you emulate that. And it's, at the bare minimum, like you said, a great opportunity to go to some great venues. I know Tucker Center down in Florida State is a pretty famous place in the ACC to play. So an opportunity to say, hey, I was there, I was a part of that, is always a fun time for these athletes and the coaches, to be sure.
Yeah, and when you have a young team, like we do really on both sides, it's an opportunity for them to try and figure out how to grow as a team a little bit and face some of that adversity and figure out how they're going to respond and who's going to be that leader. I think that's one thing that we're searching for a little bit, especially on the men's side, is who's going to step up and be that leader on the floor when it can't always be the coaches. And this is another opportunity for them to figure out when they face a little adversity down there, how do they respond and who's it going to be?
Yeah. We take a look, kind of pivoting back a little bit, because I found it a little amusing to talk to Ashley and make the comment of how things have changed since she was in the program about 14, 15 years ago. That's got to be a good feeling as well to be able to say that, hey, over time things are going to improve and things are going to be renovated and whatnot. But to have a former athlete come in and say, hey, I'm proud to be in these facilities and be around all of this. This is great. This is what you hope to be. That's got to be a sign in the right direction for the department to say we're keeping up with times, and not only that, but we're exceeding expectations and setting good platforms for people.
Yeah, sometimes we don't necessarily appreciate it because we're always looking at the next project,
right?
And we don't take time to step back and reflect on how far we have come. But yeah, I mean, and not just those facilities in Parker where they train, but also as you get over into the Success Center and our nutrition area and our weight room and academic space, all of those spaces are different from when she was here, and
right.
And even when some of those were here 5-6 years ago, they're much different.
Yeah, and that's something, as you said, we're in very much. It's not by anything other than just how life works, instant gratification, kind of that focus on the next thing, but an enjoyment of being a native of the area for myself, being able to see that, hey, over the course of my lifetime going to games and events and whatnot, we've got some pretty awesome places that's going on here and some pretty awesome teams filling those venues as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, the one that hasn't changed is Hauk.
Well.
That one still we need to figure out. It's going on. The stadium's going to celebrate its 90th birthday here before too long, and it's borderline between historic and old, and
it's a fine line to tap dance on.
Yeah, so we need to find a way to make some strides there, but hopeful that the success we had in football and that some community buy-in and support is going to be really important to try and get that project moving, because students are attracted to things that glitter and shine. And,
yes, they are. Cell phones have spoiled us.
That one doesn't really do either of those.
As much as we try, I understand. So we wrap up 2018 for the most part. As we said, no coaches show next Monday for Christmas Eve to celebrate, but we will be back on New Year's Eve to launch properly into 2019. But in the midst of all that, we do have some events. I know the women are playing against Harris Stowe on the 29th, so it's the deep breath for you, and I'm sure pretty much all of the department is saying, okay, we've got a couple weeks to not necessarily recoup, but maybe steel yourselves and be ready for what's coming in 2019.
Yeah, and I talked to our staff about making sure that you take whatever time you can, to relax, to spend time with family and friends. This is a business that doesn't have 8 to 5, and it doesn't have weekends off oftentimes.
Quite the opposite most times.
And, so where you can get it, you need to take it and take advantage of it. And I'm no different. My wife, will be the first to tell me, hey, like sometimes you can't do everything. And it's hard, but the holidays is one of those that kind of forces you into it. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it as soon as I maybe start doing some Christmas shopping. I haven't done any of that yet. But it's a good time to be able to relax and get recharged before the first of the year starts.
From one sports-based person to the other, Amazon is your friend. If it does help at all, believe that's about saved my skin for pretty much everybody in the family. So
I suppose I have a couple days I can still get
you can still knock in some of that, although I will say it's a little bit of a detriment that my wife gets the emails for what's ordered, so it's been kind of having to find ways to hide that. But the fun of technology coming and maybe some of the detriments that come with it. Brady, we appreciate your time, sir. Appreciate you being a part of all of this, helping us make everything go with the programs and with the Coaches Show. Thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have a great Christmas and enjoy the time away, as we said, before the chaos begins in 19.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you for what you all do. We appreciate your coverage of us.
It's always a fun thing to be a part of. Thanks.
Thank you.
That is Brady Barkey, the Director of Athletics at Southeast Missouri State. We're going to wind things down the program. Just to remind you of what is coming up. As we said, no Coaches Show next Monday, but we will have it on the 31st. We'll be right back here in Cape Girardeau, Wings, etc., bringing you the preparations for the end of 2019 and stepping right into 2019. Want to remind you as well of what is going on the SEMO ESPN radio network and the Red Hawks radio network tonight. We've got the men's team down at Florida State. Eric Shawn will be on the call on Real Rock 99.3. Glenn Johnson on the call down in Memphis as the women take on the Tigers of Memphis. So we'll have the Red Hawks radio network on both sides of your radio dial ready to go for action. I want to say thank you to Ashley Lawson for joining us on the Coaches Show today. Her first year as a head coach of the gymnastics team. Thank you to the gymnastics team themselves for coming out and giving us some great support today. And thank you to you for listening for wherever you may be on SEMO ESPN, SEMOESPN.com, or the SEMO ESPN radio app. That is it for us. We'll send you back to a commercial break and into the next hour of the Stephen A. Smith Show. This has been the Southeast Coaches Show live at Wings, etc. Merry Christmas, everybody. We'll talk to you on New Year's Eve.